Welcome, everybody. This is our first video podcast. My name is Maria Belén Avellaneda. I'm an associate real estate broker with Compass. I'm the founder and CEO of MBAK Capital Group. We are going to discuss a variety of issues that are basically related to what's going on today on the real estate market. We will bring here a lot of very knowledgeable either colleagues or professionals in this industry. Today, I'm presenting my colleague here, Marshal Li. He has a tremendous success in the rental business, and we are going to discuss basically what's going on with all these issues related to the new laws that were passed between the landlord-tenant regulation and specifically the broker fee. Marshall here, could you tell me a little bit about your business, how this has been affecting you, and basically what is this broker fee that everybody's talking about, why, and what's the change that has been occurred?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Marshal Li with Compass. Most of my business, has consisted with landlord transactions, and a lot of the representation that I have given is, basically for the better good of both situations. Usually, for landlords, we want to provide the most valuable tenants, and for tenants, we want to make sure that the landlords are complying with the right regulations in, New York City, basically. I would have to say that the broker's fee change in this new law did definitely take, me by surprise. I don't know about you.
Yes,
but
everybody, I think at the beginning, like everybody in the industry was pretty much upset, basically because nobody knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a surprise effect.
Yeah, absolutely. For my market, I would say that there were some impacts because essentially, as that change happened, I watched the rents basically jump up overnight. A lot of the representation that the landlords had, brokers' fees were included into the rent to kind of offset the payment to the tenants, essentially to kind of keep the rents lower. Now with the start of that change when it was announced, I instantly noticed a $150, almost $200 increase amongst, 1 and 2 bedrooms overnight.
So basically, I would say a regulation that at the beginning sort of aimed or was supposed to protect the tenant, I feel like, has like this double effect that at the end of the day, some landlords can transfer that amount into basically their monthly rent. And not only that, we discussed before about what I felt. My background is in economics, so I felt like when discussing this is like a compound interest rate. Basically, a fee is just something that you pay, is a one-timer. While if there is a rent increase, each increase will build up on a higher base. So at the end of the day, if the tenant does the math,
Absolutely.
He's losing money.
Yeah, so I think amortizing the fee into the rents, like let's say you had 2 bedrooms for $2,400 in my market and price point, instantly overnight you would, let's say, amortize a fee of 1 month. The rents would jump maybe 150, somewhere around that range, but basically within the second year the tenants are paying for it again. Mm-hmm. So with that kind of in mind, the landlords don't really mind this. They're able to collect a higher percentage. They kind of have the advantage on year 2. So when I heard about this increase, I wasn't 100% sure who this was supposed to help or protect.
Yeah, I think the tenants do not understand exactly what is happening. It looks like they're getting something for free, but it's not. At the same time, there is like, I think that there is a lot of confusion. Basically, a tenant can have his own broker, and pay that fee. Basically, the fee that it has been like sort of disputed is when basically a landlord hires a broker and then there is a direct coming to that broker. It's not just brokers cannot, get a rental fee, which is wrong. So that's something that we need to clarify. Also, we discussed previously a little bit about why we call it this a fee. A fee hurts always. So,
yeah, of course.
You were telling me like this is really a commission. It's not a fee.
Yeah.
What do you have to tell us about that?
Well, when I was talking to you, I always usually like to tell, people, and I don't know if like this analogy is like the greatest, like sometimes, it is kind of like maybe a strange thing to go. Everyone basically has to get paid for their services. They from someone who's working freelance, which basically you and I are such. The commissions that we earn is, again, I don't see, certain paychecks day to day as if like we work for an employer. We are employed through ourselves. And I think the main objection that a lot of people have are if we are, a landlord's agent or we represent the landlord side, that they should technically pay that fee outright.
But at the same time, I think that the tenant is not aware of how many other things the landlord is paying.
Oh, absolutely.
Which
absolutely.
actually, and the cost of, maintaining a property, increasing taxes and this and that is, overall, I feel like, return is, they're diminishing the returns so much that at some point New York is now no longer investable.
Yeah.
And that's something that when we were discussing what's going on with the fee is just, a little bit, it's such a small part of a much bigger issue. Absolutely. And a much bigger problem, which is basically when New York passes certain laws, and this has been like for the past, I would say, 2 years, and it has become like very investor unfriendly. And the problem is basically an investor will at the end, go and seek returns.
Absolutely.
When the investor seek returns in another place, leaving this place, basically takes jobs. It takes obviously money. And at the end of the day, I think like the whole structure they have created has this thing that it was supposed to help, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's going to damage the economy so much that the effect is completely the opposite.
One of the points I think while we were, just kind of discussing, and I was thinking about this, I think what my personal opinion maybe is that there just isn't enough housing. There's just not enough, everyone, New York City is the city of dreams. People come here from all walks of life, chasing the dream of what they set out to basically aspire for. And, within the rental market, I think the underlying issue is that we have a shortage of supply. For me, I usually see, prices fluctuate depending on the season. So for instance, in the wintertime, less people tend to want to move. And we see, fluctuation downward in terms of pricing. We see a higher days on market. And I usually tell my clients in advance, we're coming into the winter season, that the demand is lower, the supply is higher. And this kind of translates over, again, to like the sales market. Like if all of the changes that kind of occur and go on, it becomes like you said, investor unfriendly,
Well,
and
less people will buy
exactly.
property, and if less people buy property as an investment, there is going to be like less housing for everybody. There is going to be less incentive to actually, have multi-families if you're not getting any type of return, if your taxes are higher and your return is squeezed. Obviously, you will take your money somewhere else. The other thing that is very confusing, I would say, is it's not just a fee. Again, it's like the whole package of measures. I would say like many of them are related to the screening of the person, the deposit that they should pay, and this has changed the way a landlord approaches the whole business. And a lot of people who actually they had, let's say, fairly low credit, if they advance 2 months or a little bit more, they could get housing. Now, if you're a landlord and you can just take 1 month deposit, I'm not going to rent to someone that I'm not sure he's going to pay me.
100%. I completely agree with you here. One of the things that I'm seeing in my market, and just across the board, no matter which borough that you go to, as you kind of reduce the ability to have any kind of flexibility anywhere across the board, if landlords are only allowed to, let's say, only take 1 month security, we kind of eliminate, foreign tenants who might want to come here, rent out a space. They have enough equity in the bank. However, the landlord doesn't necessarily feel comfortable in those situations. The initial procedure was, let's do 3 months security, even half a year security, maybe the year up front. Now, because there's only the ability to collect 1 month's rent, 1 month on the security, if your credit is anywhere under 700, sometimes it's easier for them to kind of just pass on to the next person. So like the pool of people that are looking, it kind of hurts the ones that it's supposed to protect. And I think that was something that you had mentioned to me, and it was a really solid point. 100%, those with like semi okay credit are kind of being overlooked when compared to just taking a risk with someone who has a higher credit or a higher ability to pay,
And many times they are sort of forced to get like, insurance through companies because their credit is not good, or they come from abroad, or their income is not that great. A lot of things, this again, this was a market, for me, a beautiful market. And there was a lot of things that, will give you some sort of flexibility to accommodate certain situations.
We're both deal makers
without,
and
abusing the other part. If I have someone like, I don't know, someone that really, needs the house, she's trying to get, like, she just got a new job and she's working so hard, she has a kid. Well, many times I would just tell the landlord, just take an extra security, give her a home. And now this is impossible. This is really impossible.
Absolutely.
It's like because they
it allows like flexibility on your end to, you can feel the good intentions of certain tenants. However, I see this a lot, like the landlords, they have a higher risk, they understand that the risk is suddenly maybe doubled, if you end up with any tenant issues, they understand the new law went from a 6-month period in court to one that is over a year.
My main Samsung's criticism on this is, like, they call it the Tenant Protection Act, and I feel it's more like a landlord and protection act. Basically, without giving so much to the tenant, they remove a lot from the
Absolutely.
landlord, and now it's very hard to like get them together. I think the whole way it was presented is basically landlords against tenants instead
Oh
of
yeah,
a market, coming together, creating housing, creating better housing, creating more opportunities for people to access to an apartment, have a nice, living, enjoy with their families. I think they cut many possibilities with all this.
absolutely. Just again, like for me, you, and everyone in the brokerage community, I think at the end of the day, we're all deal makers. We want to make sure that our clients are taken care of, and having less abilities to give options to help people hurts the people that we're intending to help, And
Also, when we talk about fees and commissions, and I feel like they believe we do not do anything for the tenant, which I feel that's a complete misconception. Even if you are representing the landlord, I feel like we do all their board packages, the follow-ups, we check if you're good. We talk about this so many times, like they call you if the AC is not working, the fridge
yeah,
is broken, this they call the broker. So
yes,
we give like help that is, it goes way beyond the deal itself. It's like you're the person of reference for both sides many
yeah.
times. So I feel like I do believe
We're our own management company
yeah, no,
sometimes.
many times. And actually, I feel like in the industry you have everything. You have, like in any other industry, you have amazing professionals and you have horrible professionals. I feel like many of the tenants who are upset, unfortunately, dealt with horrible professionals in their lives. But there, I think the majority is is really good. They and they want deals to happen. They have become brokers. Mainly because they like to negotiate and they want to help people find their homes.
Absolutely. I get a great sense of joy whenever I find someone that glows when they see this apartment and they get a chance to call it home. Um, at the end of the day, we help people with their most important assets, and having a solid amount of flexibility to do our jobs is very important for both landlords who um, can give a tenant a chance to provide a home that they like. Imagine if certain people loved an apartment and they just couldn't qualify for it because they were a foreign international students, or let's say they were a student with a guarantor that's overseas. Those are the kinds of people that I honestly really see being hurt by this change.
Or
You know,
mostly also people with very
along with
low
those,
incomes.
exactly.
So I feel again like the law should be like a sort of balance. Is the law should
Absolutely.
be like, it should absolutely level the playing field, but should not put one
Do
against
you
each other.
do you? I'm guessing this comes into a political um, uh, element, right? Just a
On
blanket protection without, and at times I think that's generally across the board. We want, politicians say we want to help tenants, and this is the way that we should do it, by making sure that uh, landlords, don't overcharge tenants, and that they're not being ripped off, and that they have a place to go and they have a place to stay. But at the end of the day, if those protections that were enacted make it harder for them to get an apartment, and an increase overall in rents, how exactly does that really help other?
No, I guess like we're living in a very complex, I would say, political time.
Yeah.
I think they should sort of each other from both sides, and in the middle, like they kill others.
Yeah.
So it's like I would say or my recommendation, the way I see the law, the way I see it should protect, I feel like the law should promote always economic growth. I think the law should promote employment. I think with employment, you will be able to afford housing. And, I'm sort of balanced without, bringing people against each other and trying to create sort of unity between them, to be flexible enough to have like more people happier, not what is going on right now, that is like either you're on one side or the other side,
Yeah,
and they
absolutely.
hate each other. Just a few final comments in terms of first, last year we had this act passed, then basically there were like these guidelines, then there was a lawsuit, so basically that stopped the guidelines to take any effect until March 13th.
Correct.
So what's your take on what's going to happen at the end?
Well, I see this again playing in a sphere where we may deal with an environment where, when this goes back to court, in the worst case scenario, that they may remove brokers' fees overall, and that kind of stops us from doing our job, because I know even for you and for me, like, we come from a place of trying to make a living, but also trying to provide the best amount of service so that we can grow and expand, our clients. Having this change, which I believe will most likely stick, which I think they may enforce it. We will see rents climb much higher and faster than I've normally am used to. I was looking online for listings, and all of the price points that I was normally used to seeing within the marketplace suddenly made a shift. And instantly what happened was that, even when I had to build in the fee into the, preparing for that situation by building in the fee and having those conversations with my client, people were coming on board, and they were, the rents were being pushed up, and all of a sudden it just shows that this overall will just increase the amount of rents. It doesn't necessarily solve anything. It causes additional problems that we really kind of have to step back and take a look to see what exactly can we do to provide housing to people without hurting the industry overall.
Yes.
I mean, maybe just throwing it out there, affordable housing, giving developers options to build affordable housing and giving them certain tax credits to do so would incentivize, additional building, maybe allowing zoning changes that will permit, higher buildings to be built, instead of kind of like pushing this into the sphere of having individual owners kind of take responsibility for making sure that the tenants have a place to live. It sets a really bad air between people, and I honestly think that in New York City, we have to kind of come together and bring people, into one rather than kind of pit them against each other.
Absolutely agree. Thank you so much for joining me. In this first
No problem.
video podcast. And basically, I mean, the message is like, I feel like we all believe that everybody deserves to find, their place in the world. This is a little bit
Absolutely.
of what we believe here at Compass. And we wanted to take it, to discuss these matters in a very rational way, to make sure, like, politicians really think through the things they're doing deeply before passing any of these laws, and analyzing what are the consequences. We have seen, during the crisis, how important the real estate industry is. Worldwide, we're talking about trillions of dollars. It's one of the biggest industries on earth. It moves,
Everyone
type
needs
of
a place
jobs.
to live. Yeah, we need a place to stay. We need a food to eat.
From the developer to the broker to the architect to the worker to the machine operator. Like, it's so big. And when I always says when real estate sneezes, everybody else gets sick. So is my point here is like just do the things, taking more care about and taking more responsibility of what could happen.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We really hope you enjoy this conversation and you find our thoughts useful or insightful, and you learn a little bit about what is going on in the market today. Thanks.